Brad Pitt was married to Jennifer Aniston, Hollywood's golden girl. But behind the glamour, something dangerous was brewing. In 2004, on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Brad met Angelina Jolie, and the line between acting and reality began to blur. Their chemistry was electric, impossible to ignore. What started as laughter between takes turned into stolen glances, long conversations, and an unspoken connection that grew stronger every day. The rumors spread like wildfire. Whispers of secret meetings, late-night calls, and a bond that couldn't be hidden. Both denied the affair, but the truth had already slipped through the cracks. Angelina later confessed they fell in love during filming. She said she couldn't wait to go to work each morning, because that's where Brad was. Meanwhile, Jennifer tried to keep her marriage alive, unaware that her husband's world had already shifted, and by early 2005, fairy tale was over. When photos of Brad, Angelina, and her son Maddox hit the tabloids, the illusion shattered. The world gasped, not because they didn't see it coming, but because it confirmed what everyone feared. The greatest love story in Hollywood had ended, and a new scandalous chapter had begun. Before Brad Pitt ever met Angelina Jolie, she had already been living a life of chaos, passion, and rebellion. Angelina wasn't just another actress, she was wildfire. Fiercely independent, sultry, untamed, and impossible to control. She had been married twice before Brad, first to actor Johnny Lee Miller, then to Billy Bob Thornton. Both marriages burned fast and ended just as quickly. Intense, unpredictable, and filled with drama. When Brad walked onto the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith in 2004, he wasn't meeting an ordinary woman. He was meeting a storm. Angelina was bold, magnetic, and mysterious. Everything Jennifer Aniston wasn't, and that difference pulled Brad in. But what Brad mistook for passion was actually power. Angelina lived life on her own terms. No boundaries, no compromises, no apologies. She didn't need a man to define her, and Brad should have seen that. She publicly flaunted her sexual attraction to her husband Billy. She kissed her brother on the red carpets. She talked openly about darkness, danger, and desire. Every sign was there. She wasn't built for calm love, she was built for chaos. And yet Brad dove in, leaving behind a stable marriage for a woman whose world thrived on extremes. Years later, the same independence that drew him in drove them apart. Because you can't tame a storm. You can only stand in it until it destroys everything around you. When Brad Pitt fell for Angelina Jolie, he didn't just fall in love with a woman, he stepped into a world already in motion. Before Brad, Angelina had begun building a family on her own. In 2002, she adopted her first child, Maddox, from Cambodia. She was a single mother then, devoted and protective. Brad met Maddox when he and Angelina filmed Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and soon he started forming a bond with the boy. After their relationship became public, Brad made it official. He legally adopted Maddox in 2006, becoming his father on paper and in life. That same year, they adopted Zahara, a little girl from Ethiopia. Brad again legally adopted her, giving her his last name, Pitt. By now, the Jolie Pitt family was taking shape. In 2006, Angelina gave birth to their first biological child, Shiloh Nuval Jolie Pitt, born in Namibia. Then, in 2007, they adopted Pax Thien from Vietnam. Finally, in 2008, Angelina gave birth to twins, Knox Leon and Vivian Marshalline, completing the family of 6 children, 6 kids, 3 adopted Maddox, Zahara, and Pax, 3 biological, Shiloh, Knox, and Vivian. For years, they looked like Hollywood's perfect family. Global, beautiful, united. But behind that image, tensions were growing. As Brad and Angelina's marriage began to fall apart, the children became caught in the storm. Reports claimed that Maddox, the eldest, grew distant from Brad after a heated argument on a private jet in 2016, an incident that reportedly changed everything. Since then, Maddox has stayed close to Angelina and remained distant from his father. Pax also seems to side with his mother. He's rarely seen with Brad and reportedly avoids contact. Zahara, though polite in public, also appears closer to Angelina. The younger 3, Shiloh, Knox, and Vivian, have stayed quieter, sometimes seen with Brad, sometimes with Angelina, but the once perfect family image is disturbed, and the emotional distance between father and children is clear. Jolie asserts that on a private flight in September 2016, Brad physically and verbally assaulted both her and their children. Specifically, the filing claims he grabbed Jolie by the head and shook her, then pushed her into the bathroom wall. Soon after, reports surfaced about Pitt's struggles with anger. The infamous plane incident brought the situation to a boiling point. According to sources, an argument broke out mid-flight. When their son Maddox stepped in to defend his mother, things turned physical. The FBI and the Los Angeles Department of Child and Family Services both investigated, but found no evidence of abuse. Still, the damage was done. Pitt described receiving the divorce papers, but it was already too late. Determined not to turn their split into a war, Pitt vowed to change. He quit drinking cold turkey and sought reconciliation, not revenge. While Pitt accepted his faults and tried to make amends, Jolie seemed determined to create distance. A judge even warned she could lose primary custody if she continued to interfere with Pitt's visitation rights. For nearly a year, Jolie stepped back from work, claiming she needed to help her children heal, calling them her best friends. Pitt, meanwhile, stayed sober and submitted to voluntary drug tests to prove it. But rebuilding trust wasn't easy. Maddox reportedly refused several visitations before finally reconnecting with his father through family therapy. As their divorce dragged on, the couple began dividing their shared assets, including their beloved Chateau Miraval vineyard in France. Once labeled Jolie Pitt, new bottles now bear a single name. Considering Pitt's past battles with alcohol, perhaps letting go of the vineyard was symbolic, one less temptation. Jolie's legal filings state that Pitt's abusive behavior toward her and their children began before the 2016 flight incident. Days later, Angelina filed for divorce, requesting full custody of their 6 children. She said she was doing it for their safety and well-being. Brad denied any wrongdoing, and after the investigation, he wasn't charged with any abuse, but the custody battle dragged on for years. Brad sought joint custody. Angelina resisted, claiming she wanted what was best for the children. Each court hearing, each legal story became another public drama. Brad once called their split an awakening through emotional pain. What began as the greatest love story of its time ended as one of the most bitter separations Hollywood had ever seen. Brad Pitt once had everything: fame, success, and a woman who brought peace into his world, Jennifer Aniston. She wasn't loud, she wasn't dramatic, she was calm, steady, and full of warmth. With Jennifer, Brad had balance, a home that felt real, laughter that felt easy, and love that felt safe. But then came Angelina Jolie, bold, mysterious, magnetic. She offered adventure, passion, and danger, everything Brad thought he was missing. And in chasing that fire, he walked away from the calm. Years later, when the dust settled, he looked back, and the truth was clear. He hadn't just lost a wife, he'd lost the one person who made his life quiet in a world that never stopped shouting. Jennifer Aniston never spoke with bitterness. She moved on gracefully with the same calm heart she always had. And Brad, he once called her an incredibly giving, loving, and hilarious woman. Words that now sound like a quiet confession. What began as a movie romance of Brad and Angelina ended in years of conflict, distance, and silence. Their story went from passion to emotional pain, from forever to never again. Sometimes the person who changes your life isn't the one meant to stay in it. Brad left behind peace for chaos, and now only he knows the cost of that choice. If you believe Brad should have stayed with Jennifer, let us know. Hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories behind Hollywood's so-called fairy tales.